Emily Turner had never imagined that moving to Seattle would change her life in a way she couldn't explain. At 34, she was content with her quiet, organized days, a small apartment near the bay, her job as an interior designer, and weekends spent with coffee and sketchbooks. Love was no longer on her list. Her last relationship had ended years ago, leaving behind lessons she didn't want to revisit. She believed some hearts were better kept safe behind walls. But fate, as it often does, likes to test those who claim they've moved on. It happened on a rainy Friday evening in March. Emily had been invited to a local art exhibition by her coworker, who cancelled at the last minute. She almost didn't go, but the thought of staying home in silence pushed her out the door. The gallery was warm, full of the quiet hum of people and soft music echoing between white walls. She moved slowly from one painting to another, pretending to study them while her mind wandered elsewhere. That's when a voice beside her said, "Do you always look this serious when staring at art?" She turned and saw him. Tall, dark hair slightly messy, eyes full of life. He looked like someone in his mid-20s, confident but kind. His presence caught her off guard. She smiled politely, unsure whether to respond or walk away. "Only when I'm trying to understand what the artist is thinking," she said. He chuckled softly. "Maybe you're thinking too hard. Sometimes art's just meant to be felt." His words lingered. She wasn't used to strangers starting conversations, especially not young men who spoke like they already understood life a little too well. But there was something disarming about him. They started talking about the colors, the emotions behind the pieces, and somehow about everything else. His name was Ethan Brooks. He was 22, studying architecture, and had a passion for painting. He wasn't trying to impress her. He was just being real, and that sincerity drew her more than she wanted to admit. They moved together through the gallery, stopping at pieces that sparked stories. He told her about his dream to design homes that felt like poetry, and she shared how design, for her, was about creating peace where chaos once lived. Their conversation flowed naturally, like two people who had known each other in another life. When the event ended, Emily realized she hadn't checked her phone once. Time had slipped quietly between their words. She gathered her things, ready to leave, but Ethan walked with her to the door. Rain was falling steadily outside, the city lights blurring through it. He hesitated for a moment before saying, "You know, they say age doesn't matter when something feels right." Emily raised an eyebrow, caught between surprise and amusement. "And what do you think feels right?" He smiled, that confident yet gentle kind of smile that could make anyone pause. "Talking to you does." She didn't know how to respond. It had been years since someone had said something that direct, that honest, without expecting anything in return. She laughed it off lightly, thanked him for the company, and walked out into the rain. But as she made her way home, umbrella half open and heart unexpectedly restless, his words echoed in her mind. Age doesn't matter when something feels right. The next morning, Emily tried to brush it off as a random encounter. Seattle was full of interesting people. It wasn't rare to meet someone who made an impression. Yet, when she picked up her sketchpad to work, she found herself sketching a face. His face. His expression, his calm eyes, the way he looked at paintings like they spoke a secret language only he could understand. She shook her head, embarrassed by her own thoughts. It was ridiculous. He was 12 years younger. What could possibly come from something like that? Still, something about that meeting refused to fade. Over the next few days, she kept returning to the memory, replaying their conversation as if searching for a reason behind it. Then, a week later, she received a message request on social media. It was from Ethan. "Hope you've stopped overthinking art," it read. She smiled before she could stop herself. Against her better judgment, she replied. And you? Still trying to turn architecture into poetry? That was how it started. A friendship that didn't feel planned. They talked often, sharing small moments from their days. Ethan had a way of making her laugh even on long work days. He was young, yes, but not in the way people usually meant. His energy wasn't careless. It was alive. He made her remember what it felt like to look forward to something or someone. A few weeks later, they met again for coffee. He brought a sketch of a house inspired by one of her designs. You said peace can be created, he told her. So, I tried to draw what peace might look like. Emily was touched. She hadn't realized how deeply he listened. Sitting across from him, she felt the quiet pull of something she hadn't felt in years. Connection. When she returned home that night, she stared out her window at the Seattle skyline. The city lights shimmered on the wet streets, just like that first night they met. She smiled softly, realizing something she hadn't expected. Sometimes, the right person doesn't fit the timeline you imagined. Sometimes they appear out of nowhere, young, bold, and unafraid to remind you that your heart still knows how to feel. And as she closed her eyes, one thought echoed gently in her mind. Maybe, just maybe, they were right. Age doesn't really matter when something feels this real. Emily tried to keep her heart calm, but the more she saw Ethan, the harder it became to hide what she was feeling. Their friendship had grown naturally. Texts turned into calls, calls turned into long evening walks, and soon, he became a part of her daily life. It felt effortless, like she had known him for years. But every time she laughed with him or caught him looking at her a little too softly, that quiet voice in her head whispered, "He's younger." This can't go anywhere. One Saturday afternoon, they met for coffee near the harbor. The wind carried the smell of salt and rain, and the sky was painted in soft grey tones. Ethan showed up wearing a denim jacket, and that easy smile that always made her forget her worries. "You've been quiet lately," he said, leaning across the table. "Busy or hiding?" "Hiding," she admitted, surprising herself. "From my own thoughts." He tilted his head. "About me?" She laughed nervously, staring down at her cup. "You're impossible." "I'm honest," he said, his tone gentle but serious. "I like spending time with you, Emily. And I think you like it too." Her heart skipped, but she forced a calm smile. "You're young, Ethan. You have so much ahead of you. I don't want to be a distraction." He leaned back, still smiling. "Who said you're a distraction?" "You inspire me." She didn't answer. She couldn't. The truth scared her more than anything. She'd built her life carefully. No chaos, no surprises, no emotional risks. Yet here he was, walking straight through her careful boundaries, as if they were nothing more than paper walls. After that day, things changed. Their connection deepened in quiet ways. The way he listened when she talked about her dreams. How he remembered every small thing she said. How he looked at her not as someone older, but as someone he truly saw. She felt safe around him, and that safety scared her, because it was becoming something she couldn't ignore. One evening, they went for a walk near the waterfront. The sun was setting, painting the waves with gold. They walked side by side, not saying much. Finally, Emily spoke, her voice low. "People will talk, you know." Ethan glanced at her, confused. "About what?" "Us. You're 22. I'm 34. They'll think it's strange." He stopped walking and faced her. "Do you care what they think?" She looked away. "Maybe I do. Maybe I should." He took a small step closer. "I don't care. I just know what feels right when I'm with you. You're the one overthinking it." His words hit her heart like a wave. She wanted to argue, but the truth was written all over his face. He meant every word. She tried to keep her distance, but he made her feel alive again. Something she hadn't felt in years. They started seeing each other more often. Cooking together. Exploring little bookshops, watching old movies. There was no label, no promise. Just two people who made each other's worlds lighter. But the more beautiful it became, the more fragile it felt. She knew something this good couldn't stay untouched by reality forever. Then one evening, everything changed. They were sitting on a bench overlooking the bay, watching the city lights flicker across the water. Ethan looked unusually quiet. She noticed the way he was fidgeting with his hands, his jaw tight. "What's wrong?" she asked softly. He took a deep breath. "I got an offer. A 6-month architecture project in New York." She froze. "That's amazing, Ethan." "It is," he said, forcing a smile. "But it means I'll have to leave soon." The words sank in slowly. The thought of not seeing him, not hearing his laugh, felt heavier than she expected. She tried to stay strong. "You have to go. It's a great opportunity." "I know," he said quietly. "But part of me doesn't want to. Not if it means losing what we have." Her chest tightened. She looked out over the dark water, trying to hide the tears forming in her eyes. "You won't lose me," she whispered. "But maybe we both need this distance to understand what this really is." He looked at her for a long time, his expression unreadable. "So that's it? It's not goodbye," she said. "It's letting life happen." Neither of them spoke after that. The silence between them said everything. Love had come softly, but now life was pulling it in another direction. That night, when Emily went home, she couldn't sleep. Her apartment felt colder than usual. She replayed every moment in her head. His laughter, his words, the way he made her forget her fears. She wanted to tell him not to go, to stay just a little longer. But she knew it wouldn't be fair. His dreams mattered too much to hold him back. The next morning, she found a note on her doorstep. It was from Ethan. The handwriting was rushed but heartfelt. "You told me to live my life, but you're a part of it now. I'll come back, Emily. And when I do, I hope you'll still believe that age doesn't matter." Tears filled her eyes as she folded the note. She didn't know what the future would bring, but deep down, she understood something had shifted forever. Love wasn't about timing or numbers. It was about how deeply someone could reach into your life and change the way you see yourself. And even as she stood there alone, holding his letter, she realized something she couldn't deny anymore. She had fallen for him. Not because of his charm or youth, but because he had reminded her that the heart doesn't follow rules. It only follows what feels true. And that truth, no matter how uncertain, was something she could no longer ignore. The first few weeks after Ethan left for New York felt strange for Emily. She tried to convince herself that life would return to normal work. Coffee, quiet evenings, but nothing felt the same. Every message from him made her smile, and every day without one felt a little emptier. They talked every night through video calls, sometimes until the sun came up. He'd tell her about the new city, his projects, the chaos of deadlines, and she'd tell him about her design work and the peaceful rain of Seattle. It wasn't the same, but it kept them close. Close enough to feel like nothing had changed, even though everything had. Time passed quickly, yet slowly. There were moments of laughter and warmth, but also silence and doubt. Emily could feel the space growing between them, not just in miles but in rhythm. Ethan was living a new life. He was meeting new people, learning, exploring. She was proud of him, but part of her feared that he might outgrow what they had. Every time he talked about new experiences, her heart whispered, "He's moving forward, and I'm standing still." One night, during a late call, she noticed how tired his voice sounded. You sound exhausted, she said softly. He smiled weakly. Just been working a lot. Things are intense here. I can tell, she replied. You've been distant lately. There was a pause. I don't mean to be. There's a lot happening. She forced a smile. It's okay. I understand. But when the call ended, she sat in silence for a long time. She wanted to believe that distance couldn't change love, but she also knew that love needed presence, something they no longer had. Days turned into weeks. The messages grew shorter, the calls less frequent. When they did talk, it felt forced, as if both were trying too hard to keep something alive that was quietly slipping away. Emily didn't blame him. She blamed time. She knew how life worked. It pulled people in different directions. Then one evening, her phone buzzed with a message from Ethan. Can we talk? Her heart sank. She knew that tone, gentle but heavy. She called him immediately. His face appeared on the screen, the same warm eyes, but something in them looked distant. I've been thinking, he said slowly. Maybe this distance is showing us something. Like what? She asked quietly, already fearing the answer. That maybe. We're holding on to something that can't grow right now. Her throat tightened. So you think we should end it? He looked down, then back at her. I think we should trust time to tell us what's real. I don't want to hurt you by pretending everything's the same when it isn't. She didn't cry, not at first. She just nodded, trying to understand the ache spreading through her chest. I get it, she said softly. You need to live your life. I want that for you. Emily, he began, but she stopped him gently. It's okay, Ethan. Maybe love isn't about holding on. Maybe it's about letting the other person grow. When the call ended, the silence in her apartment felt louder than ever. That night, she finally let the tears fall. They weren't angry tears. They were quiet, accepting ones. She wasn't crying because she'd lost him. She was crying because she'd found something real, and real things sometimes don't last in the way we hope. Over the next months, Emily threw herself into work. She took on new clients, joined an art workshop, and began painting again. Her walls slowly filled with colors, soft blues, warm golds, and deep grays, shades that reflected the emotions she couldn't put into words. Her art became her therapy, her way of keeping Ethan close without holding him back. One day, she received an envelope in the mail. It was from New York. Inside was a postcard with a sketch of a skyline, and one simple note in Ethan's handwriting. Thought you'd like this view. It reminds me of your calm. She smiled sadly, tracing the drawing with her fingers. It didn't hurt as much as before. The ache had softened into something bittersweet. The kind of feeling that stays not to wound you, but to remind you that something meaningful once existed. Seasons changed. The distance between them became normal, almost peaceful. Sometimes they exchanged small messages, small updates, but nothing deep. Emily realized that love didn't always need to end dramatically. Sometimes it simply transformed from passion to memory, from closeness to gratitude. She began to understand that love wasn't about possession. It was about appreciation. Ethan had entered her life like a sudden breeze, unexpected but refreshing, and his presence had reminded her that she was capable of feeling deeply again. That realization alone was enough. One evening, as she was finishing a painting of a sunset over water, she thought about him again. For the first time, it didn't hurt. Instead, it felt calm, almost beautiful. She whispered softly, "Thank you," though no one was there to hear it. She placed the painting on her wall, a mix of gold and grey, the light touching the dark, and named it Distance. It was her way of saying goodbye, not in sadness, but in peace. A few weeks later, as she prepared for her first small art show, She looked around her studio. Every piece she had created in the past year carried a little piece of him, not as a lover she lost, but as the person who had reminded her that love, even when brief, can awaken parts of your soul you forgot existed. Standing there, surrounded by her work, Emily smiled. Love hadn't broken her. It had shaped her. Ethan had gone to chase his dreams, and she had found hers again. She realized that even though distance had taken away their time together, it had given her something greater, understanding. Understanding that real love doesn't always end with forever. Sometimes it ends with growth. And as the city lights flickered outside her window, she finally accepted it. They were apart, but what they had shared was real. And that was enough. A full year had passed since Ethan left for New York. Seasons had come and gone, and with each one, Emily had changed quietly. Her life in Seattle had found a new rhythm, one that wasn't defined by waiting or wondering. She had poured her heart into her work, opened her own small design studio, and even started teaching a weekend art class. The pain that once lived inside her had softened into a quiet strength. Yet, every now and then, when rain hit the windows or a certain song played, her mind drifted back to him, not with sadness, but with gratitude. On a cool autumn evening, Emily stood inside an art gallery, the very same one where she had first met Ethan. Only this time, her name was on the list of featured artists. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted one of her paintings on the wall. It was a piece called The Waiting Light, inspired by the years she had spent learning how to let go. The gallery was warm, filled with soft music and a mix of familiar faces. Friends, colleagues, strangers, all admiring her work, her journey. She was in the middle of greeting a guest when she heard a voice behind her. "You still look serious when staring at paintings." Her heart stopped. The sound of that voice, calm, teasing, familiar. It couldn't be. Slowly, she turned around, and there he was. Ethan stood just a few steps away, a little older, his hair slightly longer, his presence still steady and warm. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The noise around them faded, and all that existed was that look. The same connection they once shared. Still alive, still unshaken by time. "Ethan," she finally whispered, "I didn't know you were back." "I saw your name on the gallery's page," he said, smiling softly. "I couldn't stay away. I had to see you." She took a breath, her pulse racing. "It's been a long time." "Too long," he said. "But you look happy. You really made something of your art." She smiled, shy but proud. "I did. It helped me heal." He nodded slowly. "I thought about you, a lot. Every time I walked past a gallery in New York, I wondered if you'd ever hang your paintings in one." Emily looked down, hiding the emotion in her eyes. "And now you're here, seeing it happen." "Yeah," he said softly. "And I'm realizing something I knew from the start. Age never mattered. It never did." His words hit her heart just like the first time he said them, but now they carried a different weight. Not youthful confidence, but grown understanding. She studied his face, noticing the quiet maturity in his eyes. He had changed, just as she had. "Did you stay long in New York?" she asked. "I did," he said. "The project turned into something bigger. But even with everything I achieved, something was missing. I thought time would make me forget, but it only made me see things more clearly." Her throat tightened. "And what did you see?" He stepped closer, his voice low and sincere. "That love isn't about timing or numbers or what people think. It's about who brings peace to your life. You did that, Emily. You still do." She felt her eyes sting. The walls she had once built, the ones that had taken her years to construct, started to crumble again, but this time not from fear, from truth. Ethan, we tried. We really did. And life took us in different directions. Maybe, he said, but maybe those directions were just preparing us for now. The air between them felt still, almost fragile. People walked past, admiring the art, but Emily felt like time had stopped. Every heartbeat carried a memory. Every glance held a question. Could love truly find its way back? Later that evening, as the crowd began to leave, Ethan lingered. He waited until she was done speaking with a few last guests before walking back toward her. "There's something I wanted to give you," he said, pulling a small folded paper from his pocket. It was a sketch, the same skyline he had once sent her from New York, but now there was a new detail. 2 figures standing side by side beneath the city lights. "I finished it after I came back," he said. "Thought it belonged with you." Emily took the drawing gently, her eyes soft with emotion. "You kept it all this time?" "I kept everything," he said quietly. "Even the feeling I had the first night we met. It never really left." She didn't know what to say. She only knew that her heart, the one she had carefully guarded, was beating with warmth again. The gallery lights dimmed, signaling the end of the event. The rain had started outside, soft and steady, just like that first night. Ethan looked toward the door, then back at her. "Can I walk you home?" Emily smiled, the corners of her lips trembling. "You still remember where I live?" "Every street," he said simply. They walked side by side through the quiet city, their footsteps in sync. Neither spoke much, they didn't need to. The silence between them was comfortable, filled with everything words couldn't express. When they reached her apartment, she turned to face him. The rain glistened in his hair, the streetlight painting a golden glow around him. "It feels strange," she said softly. "Seeing you here again, after everything." He smiled gently. "Maybe it's not strange. Maybe it's how it was always meant to be." She looked at him for a long time, searching his eyes for truth, and she found it. The same honesty, the same warmth, only deeper now. He took her hand carefully, like he was afraid to break the moment. "Let's not run from what we already know, Emily. Let's just live it. No questions, no fear, no counting years." Her heart finally gave in. She didn't need answers, just the quiet certainty that what they shared was real. As the rain fell softly around them, she smiled. "They say age doesn't matter," she whispered. "And now I know they were right." And under that gentle Seattle rain, where it all began, 2 hearts found their way back, proving that some connections don't fade with time. They simply wait for the right moment to begin again.